Where's there? 18.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
microphones are on, the cameras are live, we are recording.
Awesome.
You have a quorum, we are ready to go.
Thanks, Jim. I would like to call to order the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, regular meeting of Thursday, December 19th. I'll begin with the roll call. Sean Michael.
Present.
Jason.
Present.
David.
Present.
Joey.
Present.
Phil.
Present.
And myself. We are all accounted for. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next item of business is approval of today's meeting agenda. If there's no objections, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Motion by Phil Cranmer,
Second that motion.
second by Mr. Shannon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Next item is the approval of minutes from the October 17th meeting that is in front of you. If everybody likes them, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A motion by Mr. Alberici. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Mr. Shannon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All carried. Next item is public comment. Mr. Craig.
Chairman, we have someone in the audience who's indicated he wants to express great dissatisfaction. Did you fill out a comment card, sir?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Please read your name and address into the record.
Ron Hill, 3000 Serenade Court, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Just wanted to say that I've been keeping up with the city of Milton, what you guys are doing with Parks and Rec. I see that the department has grown by another member. And as a citizen on the other side, it's always good to see that the things that you saw come in the very beginning have grown into a fruition. I ride by Bell Memorial Park from time to time and see that the use and how you guys got the Wall of Fame going. I just wanted to give you guys kudos on a job well done and continue to represent the city and our citizens in the way that you've done. And I can firsthand tell from the last 10 years what you've done. So I just wanted to say thank you and keep up the good work. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Always good to see you. Now, don't go running away.
You were not dismissed, sir.
Now, you're not dismissed. Now is an opportunity for the Parks and Rec Board. You have been a valuable contributor to this group when you served on us with your time and talent. And so on behalf of the Parks and Rec Board tonight, it's going to be our pleasure to present you a plaque. And I'm going to read it here for the microphone so everybody can hear it, and then we'll come and take a picture. This is a plaque to Coach Ron Hill from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for your service from September of 2011 to August of 2019. It is a thank you for your outstanding service, and a quote attributed apparently to me, which you must have inspired, so thank you for this. It reads, "Your unique insight as a father, coach, and civic-minded volunteer has been invaluable." So Coach Hill, thank you very much for all your service to the city of Milton.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Come on, get a picture taken and then we'll...
You too, Tom.
I'm done.
that's part of all.
All right?
Yeah,
Get nice and
been
tight.
doing all. Well, I can't get so tight. My workouts have been kind of slim.
Okay. All right, Phil, come, you're in here. And I'll go to this side. And every here turn the shoulder. Thomas will have to have a seat. Maybe you turn the shoulder.
All right, guys. 1, 2, 3. Let me get a couple like this. 1, 2, 3. It's good stuff, guys.
You go to school. What takes you to school? What takes you to school, man? Hey, guys, I can't. Can't say nothing, like I said. Scott knows, and Jim, we all, been through a change of lifestyle. And one thing constant through it all was my fellow comrades at the school and this board right here. Guys, and this board did some things for me. Milton, city, right down involved in the community, and you saw my children, how the young ladies they are now, never ever. That's what you did, and what you continue to do. So please keep doing it. Keep doing it. The citizens appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I'm gonna come to a meeting one day and throw some real and then run out the room. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, man, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Merry Christmas. A good one. That was good. Yeah. Pretty good. Doing well. Yeah. Good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
before we continue, I'd like to continue on with the plaques that we have here. This past Monday night, Councilman Matt Coons had his final meeting and stepping down, and he had plaques of appreciation for every one of his appointees who served him, and he had some very kind words to say about you and the work that you have done for him. And so I have this plaque that Mr. Coons provided. Joey Costanzo, our heartfelt gratitude for your service to the City of Milton and for your commitment as a member of the Milton Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Thank you, April 13, 2015 to December 31, 2019.
Thanks.
We were going to joke about how small your plaque was. I think the bronze was. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Joey. Next item on tonight's agenda is committee reports. Let's begin with Hopewell Baseball.
The early registration period ended a week ago or so, and right now they're around 400 already pre-registered, so they think they're on target to be kind of where they were last year. Somewhere in the range of 700 to 900, just give or take, depending on the travel teams and select teams. Let's see, was there anything else? Yeah, same numbers as last year. So they think, somewhere around 70 plus teams, maybe 80 teams again. So full slate, and they're just in that mode of getting ready for, I guess, February for evaluation. So
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Next report, Eagle Sticks, Jason and Joey.
Question, losing track. Did we talk about field space yet? We did last, that I didn't remember if we had pointed out that we accomplished.
We have not met since the field
Since that
space.
meeting.
We haven't met, okay. So one of the things that happened since the last meeting was we met here with Eagle Sticks, Newtown, Cambridge, Juan with baseball was here as well, and I really just want to say it was a fantastic meeting. It went really well. There was no complications, and unless something's happened since the meeting, it went really smoothly.
No, all feedback. I talked to the guys both at Newtown for Cambridge, as well as the Milton boys side. Everybody is happy where we stand. So all is good, very productive meeting.
I would like to call out Mr. Alberisi for your assistance, which was greatly appreciated. We had the question at the end there about the artificial turf field and baseball's priority versus lacrosse, and you took the lead on that, and everything went smooth, and I really, genuinely thank you.
Everybody played nice in the sandbox.
They did. That's right. And I'm sorry. And Scott was there, and you were there, and you were, and so the other thing is Mary Laxmas happened since then. It's something that's been happening for quite a few years now. And I told Scott and Jim they were able to donate 300 toys to Toys for Tots, which was Tim had asked me to help out because he ran out of truck space, and he said, "Hey, could you take these?" And that was kind of nice, although they kept thanking me, and I had to point out it wasn't me. I was just the person dropping them off, but I felt really good about it. And so, and the season is on its way, so we'll have more to report later.
Awesome. Jim, I know we got a question mark for NAFL because we don't really have which is an item under new business around appointments.
Well, to that point, I've reached out to their board president today just to get a feel for where they were, because I looked at the agenda and saw that we had a question mark, so I thought, all right, well, I'll just reach out. So from last year, I don't know how aware certain people are, but there was I guess a new vendor used for equipment, or for, well, I guess it was equipment and for uniforms, and there was a uniform issue. So there was a lot of parent outcry on that, and some kids either didn't receive their uniform or didn't have their name, so it became a big thing. So they're already starting to work on that to remedy that from last year, and working with vendors on timing of when everything needs to be in so that there's no delays. And with that, they're also going to put a hard and fast, I guess, final registration date. They usually had a late one. It was kind of rolling because you would get some late people to sign up right before the season started, but by that point, jerseys had to be ordered and stuff because there is a long lead time for those. So that was one thing. They also said last year their marketing campaign was pretty non-existent, so they're going to be working on that a lot, and working with, I believe, they talked to you guys about using the city's kind of marketing resources there too. So let's see. They're also working on obtaining some new board members. I think there's been some turnover there, so they're working out that. And then the only other thing that I noticed it, but they did all the flag games at Bell and all the tackle games at North Park. But she was saying that she would like to see some tackle games over at Bell. Now I don't know how that goes with the scheduling because the flag has, I don't know how many teams. It's massive, the amount that they have. So, and they usually end up pushing back the rest of the games during the course of the day when they were overlapped 2 years ago. So, but that's just kind of where they stand. And she said there was a longer list, but those were the main bullet points for now. So,
awesome. Good to hear.
Something I just wanted to make, I know we don't do anything with basketball, but whoever was responsible for getting us the new uniforms that we have this year, and I think, did you guys have something to do with that? Because they are fantastic. We went from T-shirts to true basketball uniforms. It was fantastic.
I can't say I did it, but I have been poking Kim for a while about
we
the
went
uniforms.
from T-shirts to true uniforms, so we're very thankful. So that was fantastic.
And basketball at this point is over 500 kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you remember, I think it was, 5 years ago? Maybe
less.
6.
Less
It was
than
about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. They had 54 kids.
Yeah. Jim, since Sean Michael brought up scheduling for football, since we did the spring meeting, sort of planning out park space with partners that shares field space, what do we do for football with an out-of-city provider? How does that get done?
I fully expect that we're going to have another joint scheduling meeting. Clearly that's a formula that works. Plus, we're figuring out how to use Cox Road. So I think that the logical thing, and I'm going to ask our baseball and lacrosse guys, typically, when do you think they have their registration numbers in?
For the fall?
For fall.
Well, the season starts
August?
end of August, so, or,
Probably
yeah,
register before school ends.
middle of August. So typically, it'll be somewhere in July, registration is completed. I mean, we get, we get a pretty good guess of where we're going to be, determining, based on last year's and how many kids should be coming back, how many kids play other sports.
Yeah, I'd say for baseball, it's probably somewhere around the same, near the end of July. I haven't done the fall ball, so I off the top of my head, I couldn't say, but I know that the season starts. I mean, they were playing probably early September, so to give them a couple practices, I'm sure.
Doesn't football start up sooner?
July.
Football starts middle of July. This year, we started July, like 15th to the 20th, somewhere in that range.
So we've probably got to be looking at something in like that first 1 to 2 weeks of July, if we're going to do a scheduling meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, depending on when they say they're hard registration, they'll know how many teams they have by that point. I would say that's probably, and I think it used to be right around May was when they cut it off somewhere, whether it was the beginning or end of May. So they should know how many teams that they would have and how much field space that they would need. You'd probably give them.
We may have to schedule the football first and then get with lacrosse and baseball to see where they're at. A little later.
The only thing you should definitely keep in mind, there was at Bell quite a few days of backed up flag football for sure. It happened again this past season.
Yeah, on Saturday.
So when you're scheduling, there was a lot of delays.
But you got 2.5 more fields that you didn't have last year.
Right, correct. Yeah, that's right.
So that'll get
And, yeah,
changed.
that's right.
Is that big turf field big enough to play flag on? Or the new turf field?
I haven't seen it, but
Do we know where we want to use Cox for?
We are using Cox this spring for overflow and boys lacrosse. I don't think there's any girls lacrosse there. The girls, I think, are
There's
Mill
not.
State Northwestern Middle School in Bell. Is that correct?
That's
Oh, I
correct.
thought we were going to
Can't hear you
have
now.
some switching. I thought they agreed that they would switch if they needed to, not with the select, but with,
Yes, yeah. It was funny when the light bulb went off over
yes.
Tim's head, and when he realized, I have grass at Northwestern, I have grass at Cox Road, but I also have lights.
Yeah,
So I think there actually are some girls over at Cox Road.
yeah.
So the primary focus right now for the Cox Road facility is for lacrosse. There are some rentals of some soccer that we are accommodating to the previous owners. But we're supporting the boys. The Milton High School boys lacrosse has some type of special event on a Tuesday in March that they need a field for. So don't know what it is, but apparently there's not able to get to use the fields at Milton High School. So literally while we're here, I've been getting a text from the coach saying, hey, he's confirming how to build it and everything else. So
Good. Okay. Next item for business on the agenda is unfinished business. The first item A under unfinished business is strategic planning of future programming, and this is a topic that we have talked about at our last meeting. We've talked about for a long time, and some of tonight's discussion is make recommendation to the city. We took care of facilities last time. We touched on programming at our last meeting. It was in the minutes. But it's to kind of come up with a more formal recommendation to the council for 2020 as they move forward for figuring out what programming should we offer. And I think we have an update probably Tom can tell us about on that, as well as what programming we might subsidize for residents.
Mr. Chairman, do you
Yes.
think there's any benefit in my going through the documents I've given you?
So there are a couple of questions, so that may be good. And I have a question, just budget question about 2020 budget in general. Because since the budget's already been formalized, there's a line item in there for this programming, right? For out-of-city programming,
The reimbursement.
The reimbursement?
for reimbursement.
Oh, okay, yes,
So,
yes.
so there's essentially a cap. I mean, we could pick a dozen programs, but we're going to be capped on the first, on financially at some limit. There's going to be a fallout. So the discussion here may be, we may recommend more programming than there is money for, or the first people in the door to ask for reimbursement in whatever process you guys build may use up the money, and there may be people that don't get paid. So I want to bring it up just so everybody knows, just because we're recommending a program or considering a program doesn't mean everybody who signed up gets covered in that program. Because essentially you guys will, the staff will figure out how's reimbursement going to work. It may be first in, first out.
Well, as I recall from the minutes, I wasn't at the October meeting, but I believe you, as a board, made the recommendation that we should be supporting girls softball in Alpharetta and any adult activity programming that does not happen
Correct.
at the Adult Activity Center. And
Yep.
senior citizen.
Senior
program,
centers,
Senior
yep.
citizen programming.
Yep.
So, for example, at the Arts Center on Mayfield Road and things like that.
Yep.
Okay, so that was what the recommendation that came out of the October meeting.
Correct. Do you know the budget line item number that we're talking about for 2020 in this reimbursement pool?
I believe that number is $50,000.
That's what I thought I remember. Okay, I thought I remembered that, so just checking. Okay, so yeah, why don't you take us through the great work that Thomas did and tell us what we're looking at.
All right, first of all, the two smaller documents here, it says City of Alpharetta voting by 6 members, and then color code for Cherokee, Forsyth, Johns Creek, and Roswell voting by 5 members. We had one small discrepancy, and so in order to not skew the numbers where we had 6 people voting versus 5 people voting, we handed it out differently. The voting by 5 members is actually 38 pages long, and there's a lot of repetition.
Yep.
It's because there's a lot of programming that's offered similarly in these programs. But what I did, I was talking with Sean Michael earlier today, and for printing out for you guys, I did the first 12 pages, which took us to the end of anything that scored 6 points. This was, again, the process where you voted 3, 2, 1, or 0 on something. And then Thomas went through the process of combining it all and creating the report. And you also then, what we did is we took a look at, is this something that we already offer in Milton? And so we gave that. And then essentially the same exercise was done for the Alpharetta programming. And of course, with 6 people voting and a maximum of 3 points, you could have a high score of 18. And with the 5 members voting, you have a high score of 15. So this is what you as a group voted was most important. The large 11 by 17 is an analysis of the usage by citizens of Milton at Alpharetta. And it shows the growth and how things developed over the course of the years. I do want to emphasize in the column projected FY19, extrapolated in red, actual in gold. There were some activities, for example, if you look at the very first line item, swim lessons, those lessons were captured in the first 5 months of the year, and we know that's what it would have finished at because there wasn't going to be any more swimming at the end of this year.
Right.
And then when you had in the red, what we did is we took a look at trends, and I tried to be very conservative in extrapolating, what I thought those numbers would be, or if we had some type of reasonable forensic evidence, we put it out there. As you can see from the very bottom, there was a substantial savings, and I didn't even calculate what I thought it would be if we had stayed with it, but it was substantial. So, but you can see what was popular with parents. Most of the parents that were going for programming were going for things that were in Alpharetta as compared to Roswell or Cherokee or Forsyth. Frankly, we don't have data from any of those entities, but it's logical to assume that if there was no out-of-city fee in Alpharetta, that's where they were going to get services that we don't have. So what you have in front of you is what people were getting in Alpharetta. You also have what you gentlemen think is most important that we should be pursuing. And through other data that I have sent you electronically, you also had the actual families that were being served by Alpharetta, the total registrations, participants, and families served. And if you need that data now, we can print it very quickly.
This is some great work that you've all done and quite a snapshot for us as well as council. So thanks, Jim and Thomas, for all the effort you put into it. Picking up from our conversations we had at our last meeting, so I was just taking straight line projections that you guys have included here for softballs and seniors, because we agreed that we should cover them, so now we can kind of put a price tag to them. I got a ballpark number about $24,000 for softball and about $4,500 for seniors. So that gets us right to half of the money that we've got in our line item.
Is softball on this list?
AYSA under youth athletic leagues.
Almost directly in the middle of the sheet.
Yeah.
Did you,
And
Scott, did you take the travel
you,
one
Pat.
too? 'Cause
I left travel out.
Okay.
Although you might make an argument in softball that since there is only one provider,
Yeah.
that travel is maybe we.
But it was only $750.
It's a
Right.
different
Yeah,
discussion.
so when you included, I was just looking at almost 25, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put it in there, but it's certainly a question mark for our discussion. When I looked at, we assume in youth sports in the city of Milton, we have football. So I'm going to ask Jim or Tom to remind me, how does the football provider agreement work when we're sharing fields and we have out-of-city kids? Because
Go ahead, Tom.
This past fall, it was all taken as one registration, and they scheduled all the tackle at North Park, and some teams practiced at Bell, but all the games were at North Park, and all the flag was at Bell, and that probably will need to change to two separate programs to register through. It can all go through NAFL, but you got to choose which one you're registering for. And then that can be your home base for your practices, and then they can interleague. That will hopefully be the goal for next fall.
In the discussion we had last Friday, we met with the NAFL board. They said right now they're in a model where they're strictly by high school district. And there are residents of Milton who are districted to Alpharetta High School. Coaches pointed that out many times. And from the standpoint, we know through discussion with Alpharetta, they were not terribly pleased with how it worked out this way this year. And they told us they were having discussions at the board level of should they stay with that feeder model or should they just have kids sign up and play. So that's a discussion. The current splitting between the two cities is not making either city terribly happy.
right,
Alpharetta wants Alpharetta residents on their field. They don't want the out-of-city people on their field. We want the Milton residents on the field. So that's something that they're contemplating right now.
So the question that I have, and maybe I would bring it up with their board president, but based on, and I don't know how many flag teams, because I don't really see the numbers or how many of the Alpharetta teams there are. There was one tackle football team from Alpharetta.
Right.
So I guess the question that I would have is, I don't know, and with cross and figuring out the scheduling, is it possible to say can we use Cox Field for football and Bell and buy Alpharetta? Like, not necessarily their teams, they could have them, but like I said, I mean, there's limited numbers as there is. It's pretty much a Milton program from the kid standpoint.
Right. We have contemplated that as a solution. We talked with folks about that. You know, for practice, you don't need field goals, so we could use Cox Road for practice. We have IGA fields that don't get used in the fall. Lacrosse is smaller in the fall. Baseball is smaller in the fall. So at a first cursory glance, we think we can make it work.
So when you say make it work, you mean
Taking
you'd
all
have,
our kids back on our field.
you'd have a Milton program
Yeah.
separate from another program.
Yes.
And people, just like Hopewell and Wills Park for Alpharetta baseball, you just pick and choose.
Right.
Because I'm trying to, so listening to that, then that favors a little bit into what the 2019 projection number could have been and what it might be in 2020. It was sort of a quite big cloud hanging over that.
Yeah, and certainly, from a practice perspective, I think we can get it. Where I'm a little bit concerned is the actual Saturday game day.
Yep.
How to fit all the games. And that may be a case of perhaps some lacrosse games may have to get played at Cox Field because,
Goals.
you know, goalposts, yeah. So,
Do they kick field goals and flag?
no, but.
No, I mean,
do they
I guess they
in
can
town?
put them at Cox, too.
They don't kick field goal.
They barely catch.
That's true. We played fourth grade, and I didn't see one team kick a field goal. Now, it's not that you
didn't
don't
try.
find a kid that occasionally will, and,
Okay.
and there is the rule that you're allowed to, and if you do it, you get 2 points, and it's, you know, free kick basically. But, you know, like I would say, second and third grade, you're not going to see it, but maybe in fourth and fifth.
Okay.
So it's not, it's, in my opinion, it's not a super necessity for the younger groups and the flag.
No.
It wouldn't be.
Certainly, we're going to have discussion on this with all the program providers. You know, we don't want to presume something. We want to talk it through and understand. We are hoping and expecting to have a much better line of communication with NAFL. Frankly, the communication between NAFL and the city this year was dreadful. There's just no other word for it. It was
Yeah.
awful. And
I didn't get the impression it was working.
I'm sorry?
I didn't get the impression it was working.
No, it wasn't. And in fact, their president did quit halfway through the season. Now, the president they have now is a dynamic, energetic woman who is committed to working with the city. We're very excited to be working with her. And her name is Nitcha Lewis. And ironically, my wife was kindergarten teacher to her son, so it was a kind of a neat immediate connection. But you know, this is a lot got to figure out. I mean, we've got this new toy, 2.5 additional fields. How do we maximize it? And we certainly intend to.
Okay. So my takeaway from all that is that the football number, if we're forecasting 2020, might be a little less than the current number because we would conceptually pay less out of city fees
Yes. Yes.
if it all works out.
Yes.
So just kind of a trend in there. I don't want to dominate conversation. When I reviewed it, I kind of figured that anything related to tennis and swim isn't going to get on the covered list because we already got tennis and swim. There's a question that I have, Jim, for you. There's a number of people that are in basketball, teen basketball, I think I saw. So the one question, I know the basketball situation in the city of Milton is pressed. So if we say no to out of city and those people wanted to come back into Milton, do we have room for them?
Well, they're not getting in city, they're not getting it now, right? So
They're paying to go play in Alpharetta.
correct, now.
So if we say we're not going to subsidize basketball,
But I'm saying we're not subsidizing at this current,
no, we're not.
right?
But if
So
we-
they haven't come back yet. I mean,
But-
well, some of them I'm
They're-
sure have.
Yeah.
We haven't offered a teen league during the seasons that Alpharetta does. We have a teen league during the winter season.
Is that-
But
that is-
Alpharetta has it spring. I think they have it spring, fall, and
It can't-
summer too. But our typical structured game basketball season is just the winter, and then he runs other clinics and it's
Other
year-round
times of year.
sport, but it's not like league
League
play.
sport. Okay.
Besides winter.
Okay. I got it.
Now, he did get some kids back this year for girls. Mm-hmm. I mean, for
boys,
Milton.
yeah.
They're here in the Milton program.
Okay.
Not at Alpharetta.
Anybody else got a,
And to answer the question of if everyone came back, could we accommodate them? Yeah. Probably not. I mean,
probably the same in baseball too.
We don't have a single court that we control ourselves. We are still working through 4 middle schools, two middle schools, 4 elementary schools, and Tom was able to find a church. But even now, we're still had, just today, we had basketball canceled today, right? We don't control
Yes.
it. The
Right,
Alpharetta
so
program
tonight
has
at
to do with the
Northwestern, for example, they have a band. And we had practice tonight that was canceled. So yes, it happens every season.
Tom, tell everybody, because it's new, I've seen the signs up since our last meeting about dance, because that's another
Yes, we have.
topic in here that if it's going to be now offered by the city of Milton, then we should put it on our consideration
It
list.
sure is. I had rhythm and dance shoes. We've signed them on as a program provider. We ended up doing it last month and signing the contract so we could start promoting for next year. She's offering 6 classes in the winter, and 2 of them have already got enough registration to go, which is great. And for a new program, typically it takes a lot of time to get legs and get moving. For her to have 2 classes make, I'm quite impressed. And we've still got a lot of time to market and get more kids in there. So
Great, awesome.
it only goes up to the age 8 right now. But as she gets more registration and builds, her clientele, I guess you could say, and those 8-year-olds want to keep going, she probably could just keep
Grow with it.
Grow with it, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Oh, good. Then dance is another topic that we'll provide and don't have to worry about. Thoughts from the rest of you? We're kind of making wish lists of recommendations. Or any other programs that we've kind of covered the jointly shared ones that we talked about from last month?
What about soccer? Just from the number standpoint, looking at how, I guess what was through Alpharetta, and it's, what is that?
Yeah,
Close to 20,000?
I think what we noticed, though, is that the soccer in Milton is being run through Rush currently, is it, for the most part? And that we would not.
We've visioned them as they're in the middle of the city.
Yeah,
And they are a private club.
right. But
but,
most of the citizens use Rush for,
Or they find it, and
Yeah.
they'll search online, and it's what shows up.
yeah.
Just to be clear, we're working on a $50,000 budget from a reimbursement standpoint, right?
Yep.
Of which we said 24,000 is for
Softball.
Yep.
softball. What was the senior? Where is the senior line?
Last
item?
page,
Last page.
just above all the totals.
43.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, everything that we have on seniors is activities that happen at the Adult Activity Center. And the Alpharetta has made the decision that they are not charging out-of-city fees for those at the Adult Activity Center.
Oh, gotcha.
So we have a bit of an unknown about seniors who are participating in activities that don't happen. It
gotcha.
came to our awareness through some seniors who are participating at the Art Center.
Okay.
And they were like, we go and we do our ceramics or whatever it is they do at this art center, and it's different from what happens at the Adult Activity Center at North Park.
Got it.
But
So that's not the number.
that's an unknown number.
It's a question mark.
I mean, do we have an idea of what would be charged to the city? Like, it's $5 here for these day trips that they had, and
It would be more. It would be a typical, 6-week, 8-week class probably.
okay.
I took an adult class for clay in Alpharetta, and it was, you signed up and you did each week you did a different thing, and then at the end you painted them. And I can't speak with certainty, but I believe that's probably the way that most of that art center works.
Yes.
And then
Would they charge it, just out of curiosity?
I honestly don't remember.
Bucks, $80.
Probably somewhere in that range. It wasn't outrageous.
Gotcha. So we'll put a question mark there.
What I got from the seniors who are calling me is that it seemed to be costing them $40 to $50 more to participate.
There you go.
So that lends to $80 to $100.
Got it.
Would you agree that it's probably not that many?
I would agree it's probably not that many.
It's probably a nominal number.
I think if we set aside, say, 3,000
Okay,
and say that's what we project,
got it.
but it would be a way for the city of Milton to be kind to those who are on fixed incomes.
Do we have any sense of what the redemption would be? Because there's going to be some process to
Correct.
file for reimbursement. What percentage of those out of city do we think? Like, should we max out the 50 or should we go for 60 knowing that some aren't going to submit for, what's the number we're shooting for? I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
That's a good question.
You know, as a
I
first,
think a fiscally prudent thing would be to max it, assume that it's 100%. Because I think once we start picking the final programs, we're probably going to go over 50 just a little.
Yeah.
And it'll be the redemption that brings it
Shoot
in
for
line.
50.
Yeah. So now I'm at 37 as a running total in this little
you know, don't
workshop.
forget, we have that question of, are we supporting recreation?
Correct.
Or are we supporting advanced level sports?
Yep.
So,
No, I think we already have that. Okay. So I'm at softball seniors and football, and I'm at 37. FYI.
So I'm at 27, no?
24 plus 3 plus 10 for football.
10 for football.
There'll be a change in the football program.
no, I didn't know,
Perhaps.
because I didn't get one.
If we're our own provider, then our cost, then it'll be less out of city
You just
fees.
took out one of the tackle or flags that we were kind of trying to do.
It'll depend on how that gets
Right.
But if we're our
settled.
own provider, why would we have?
We won't have,
We won't have any.
but depending on how they settle, who's providing what, if it falls tackle flag,
Oh, I got you.
hybrid, maybe somebody chooses. There,
Well, we would, hold on, just so I understand that, we would offer reimbursement to Milton residents playing in Alpharetta?
I don't know what it looks like yet. That's the problem.
Yeah, I guess.
If it's an
It's a
Alpharetta
competing program.
if it's
Oh,
an
same.
Alpharetta provider, which we don't know today, so
So-
I'm leaving a line item for it.
So Phil, the reason being was, say it's through NAFL, but they do a flag and they do tackle, and they said, okay, tackle's at this one part, flag's at the other. So we're saying, okay, whichever one you're playing in just ends up being where you got to play at. So now those people just automatically have to pay more. So that's, I think what he's saying is because it's out of the control of the
That's
citizen.
one
where
way
it
you
is,
could
right?
do it. You could have two fully competing programs and agree to pay nothing.
Yes, that.
And I think
Scenario would
the harder
probably
part
never
to that
fly.
is if Alpharetta is underrepresented, then they're just going to, then they'll be paying us an out-of-city fee to participate in our program because it could be lopsided.
No, they-
80-20%.
They could still have one team and have their practices
play
at North Park, and then you interleague with all the Milton teams.
Somewhere
That's
else.
fine.
Right.
You know, all of our leagues do that.
But we don't know what it is yet. That's the problem. So it's not going to be as high as that, but I can't say it's zero because there's no ink on that deal. Follow me? If it transitions, so I'm leaving a little room for that.
Did we come up with anything for gymnastics? I don't remember.
No, so that's where we're heading to sort of next programs.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're saying. We're talking about potentially putting funding in place to support football.
If football doesn't change,
Yeah.
then if 2020 rolls the way 2019 did, then there's out-of-city fees to Milton residents. If you're telling me that you think it's going to be fixed by the spring and realigned and reorganized and new partner agreements, then I'll take it to zero.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Okay, just to repeat it back to you. If they don't change, as we're hoping they will, if they don't, then there could be situations where a Milton resident has to go to the Alpharetta side because they're districted to Alpharetta. And so that's what you would like to allocate some funding for. All right, I got my head around that.
Okay.
It's a very low number, okay, but it is, because like I said, they only had one tackle team.
Right.
And then the flag numbers, we could find that for
So
us.
they were projected to be 23. Is 10 too high? You want to take them to 5? I'm just trying to put a number on it as we're running totals.
Okay, I'm trying to track with this, but does anyone else not have an issue with paying Alpharetta an out-of-resident fee for
This would
a
be,
football program that crosses both cities?
We're not paying Alpharetta. This is reimbursing Milton residents.
For the out-of-city fee
Who
they
ha-
get
who
charged.
That they get charged?
Because there's only going to be
There's-
one provider.
there's kids that live in the city of Milton that
Yeah.
are districted to Alpharetta. And the way that the NAFL is set up, you play with the high school you're districted with, right? So currently, they would, even though I live in Milton, I play with the Alpharetta team, I would be
Would we
on
then
North
be,
Park.
okay, I'm tracking with you. So conversely, would we be charging
Out-of-city fees. for
out-of-city
folks
fees to an
that-
Alpharetta resident?
Possibly.
Zone for Milton.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We're not
So-
the
Or if
provider.
there's a
Then,
Roswell,
then,
that area of
so
Roswell.
modeling that out, what revenue would we gain from that, and how much of that would offset?
Technically, the provider would have to identify Alpharetta residents districted to Milton
We don't.
or Cambridge and pay, and that doesn't happen.
No, they do. They're supposed to validate where they.
But they
actually
wouldn't
are
be
zoned.
reporting, we have no contractual relationship to force them to report it to us. So it's,
Could we? Well, no. We have a contractual relationship with NAFL, and there are people who live in Alpharetta, myself being one of them, who are districted for Milton. So in the way the current model works, if my son were to be playing in NAFL, he would have to sign up with Milton, and I would pay an out-of-city fee
fee.
to Milton. Through NFL, to
NFL.
Yeah, through-
which they would have to then do what with? Give it to the city? Of
NAFL
Milton?
has to, all out-of-city fees and all programs gets collected 100%.
So there's
to the
money
city.
going in both directions then on the out-of-city fees?
Potentially with if they
Potentially.
stay with their current model, yes.
Got it. Okay. So then we need to create a line item because there's the answer of people are moving in both directions, in and out.
Right.
So,
But Phil, the big difference is, unlike under the MOU where we paid Alpharetta, in this case, we're reimbursing a Milton resident forced to play
Right.
Alpharetta.
forced to play, right? Okay, so I'll put 10 on it if that's a little
I
too
don't,
high.
oh,
We
I
can-
think it's way high.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
$90 times,
No, well, Alpharetta's 112.50,
oh, true,
right? Times,
10,
yeah.
maybe?
Tell you what, I'll go look up a number right now. I'll go find out how many Alpharetta flag football teams and see if I can get an idea as to
Okay.
where they live.
That'd be-
Excuse me, I'll be right back.
Yeah, that'd
Please
be awesome.
continue.
We'll keep the conversation moving. So football's in play while we're having this conversation.
Don't bring it in here, the Wi-Fi don't work. You have to do it, yeah.
So now we're into next level programming where most residents participate. And I think I know the answer to this one. And we haven't even gotten into summer camps. Anybody want to say it for me?
Gymnastics?
Yeah, so everybody's whispering. Gymnastics.
Very cool.
So
Yeah,
it's challenge and opportunity with gymnastics.
I mean, this is my take on the gymnastics, just based off the numbers, and I don't know how fast that ends up getting there, but, I mean, if we're doing the first in, first out kind of deal, I mean, you won't even get to football season or,
Correct.
you know, middle of some of the other ones because, I mean, it's 55-13 for the gymnastics, if I'm reading it right. So that eats the whole thing. So within, I want to say, the first quarter of the year, you're pretty much halfway gone, right? I mean, I would say close to it at least.
and also recognize that with the gymnastics numbers substantial, especially when you remember the woman who came to speak to us, the biggest issue for them was the team gymnastics, which
Yeah,
is
which-
the equivalent of travel or
Which
advanced level play.
we've discussed and agreed that we're not offering subsidy to advanced level sport
Right.
for out of city. In programs that are available, let alone in programs that are outside the city. So the team part, I'm less concerned with, but
So that brings you back to the discussion on AYSA their travel teams versus their rec teams, the softball.
Yes, it does.
So I just have a question, thought here. Given this is our first year, and we have $50,000, we have about 30 of it, what we know is spent in what I would say is for softball, being that we provide baseball, we don't provide the same for girls, right?
Right.
That same opportunity. With that $20,000, do we look to spend that, or not spend it, but allocate it, or do we say year one, let's hold that for people in need, right? Maybe there is somebody that's, I'm trying to think of an example here of whether it be the football folks that live in Milton but have to play through there. Maybe there's gymnastics folks that live in Milton, but they go to the Alpharetta, and that's where they really want to. And so for a case, just for hardships, right? And folks that need it, rather than say, hey, and allocate, these are the things that we're going to fund to $50,000. Maybe year one, let's take a look and say, we'll fund 30. We have 20 for hardships, for situations that arise like this, that are out, Milton residents that, for whatever reason, really should be playing with Alpharetta, right? Because that's where they're going to go. Yeah. And then we get a better feel in year two that, hey, that was only $5,000. Let's go. Because I think we get into a situation where if we get into, gymnastics, somebody else says, well, how come you're not doing babysitting? And then you say, well, why aren't you doing this one for me? Right? I mean, because we get to a lot of, where with softball, it's a pretty solid, we offer boys, football or boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, boys basketball, girl, everything's got a pair to it.
Exempt, non-exempt.
Yeah,
list.
And so we just say, hey, we're going to leave that 20,000 for hardship cases, right?
We create a line item. I know, Tom, you drew up the hardship form. Did we create a budget?
Yes,
for that?
$5,000.
Yeah, but this would be, I guess, out of a different, because these would be folks that we would be paying that out of city fee, right? As opposed to, right, folks that,
Opposed
when I
to
say
scholarship.
not a hardship that they can't pay, but a hardship in that,
They cross on the line.
they cross the lines
Right.
of where they are, right? Or have a justified reason to play somewhere else, right? Or maybe it's just, maybe that extra $100 does make an impact for them playing there, right? Or it could be the other one is that, hey, we got 40 kids that we turned away from basketball. The right thing to do is to give those 40 kids the $100 so that they can go play somewhere else, because we couldn't accommodate them because of our field space, or baseball, or any of those. So those are the kind of hardships that I'm saying that we may want to have a reserve in year one to say, as opposed to picking which sports that, or things that we think should be funded.
Empty in the glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm tracking on that.
I'm tracking with that too. So just a question. Does the city incur any cost for offering an additional program? So say you wanted to offer gymnastics, recreation gymnastics. Is there any cost to the city?
Yes.
Where would we facilitate gymnastics, even if we did want to?
You hit the nail on the head. Where would we do it?
We don't have a building start.
And we have, the city doesn't own a facility at this time that can accommodate gymnastics. So it is, I'm going to answer your question two ways. In reality with gymnastics, it's not possible, because you have to have a gymnastics space, and these are all private buildings. And they're not going to want to rent it out to us for, we can run programming in their space. They're going to say, send the people to us and let us sign them up.
Right.
All right? But, for example, basketball. We started basketball. Do we incur any expense to start a program? Yes. We are renting gymnasium space from the Fulton County School Board, and we're also renting space now from a church. Baseball, due to its expansion, we are now renting at a cost of $22,000 a year the Birmingham United Methodist Church. All right? So any program has a cost to it to provide the facility. And this is, we don't staff any of it.
Right.
We have someone who comes by and runs their programming. For Bach to Rock, if we're using their facility, we're not collecting anything off it. But if Bach to Rock runs a program here in our place and we provide, we are the landlords and they're the tenant, they pay us a 15% commission. That commission we get does nowhere cover the costs of operating the facilities, whether they're rental facilities or the facilities that we own and maintain.
That's really helpful. So let me back up real quick. If we're going to fund softball, do we have the field space for softball?
No, Alpharetta does.
And so that's why we kind of came.
So this is subsidizing Milton residents to play in Alpharetta is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because,
In absence of the MOU.
because we don't have
That's
a
the
facility for them.
And the
Well,
location.
we have a
North Park.
facility for them.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Except for those kids who may be forced by the NAFL rules, which we hope will change.
Right.
But, right now, anyone in Deerfield is districted for Alpharetta.
Alpharetta. I like your idea, Jason. I think that's a measured, reasonable approach for 2020. Going to bring us back to a question, though, about softball, so let's just talk it out. We'll all agree that we'll cover recreational play. A Milton resident goes to play at AYSA. We have, now we start to split hairs. We've always said we wouldn't pay advanced level sports, but there's only one program. Right?
Well,
So a
and-
Milton resident who plays in Hopewell baseball pays no out-of-city fees to play an advanced level, but because the softball provider doesn't have to be in our city and they are talented enough to play an advanced level, they get pinched. Is that what?
So I guess the two sides that I would come on that is, one is it's a pretty nominal cost, right? Under
Right.
$1,000.
Yep.
I think that kind of falls into that hardship. I think there is a precedent. I mean, Hopewell has advanced level teams, right? So we offer it on the boys' side. We offer
In
what we would
lacrosse.
call select teams in lacrosse, which are tryout advanced level teams there as well, right? And so where
Football has
it's,
them.
in that it's not, $18,000.
Yep.
There's a few girls that are eligible to do that. I think it makes sense to cover them.
Yeah, I don't think the AYSA travel team is very large anyway. I mean, it's maybe one or two
Again, it's
teams.
giving the same opportunity that we give to boys and girls right? In this case, I think we need to look directly at baseball, right? We
Yep.
give that opportunity to boys, we should give the same opportunity to the girls.
So let me make sure I understand that. So we would subsidize
That's 700.
softball travel.
What they call travel. It's
Yep.
$750 was what
Now,
we.
if you call it.
So is that a slippery slope, though? I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Is that a slippery slope? 'Cause I'm going to argue the counter, just to play devil's advocate. We can be conservative and hold the 20 and do hardship and
Yep.
things of that. Conservative, right, maybe appropriate. The other side of that would be, hey, there's 265 Milton residents that would really, really appreciate a decision for us to subsidize them continuing doing recreational level gymnastics in Alpharetta. 265, that's a significant number, right? So I'm going to take that approach for a second. Now you've got how many that are,
And keep in mind, that's 388 registrations. If you look at the chart here,
yeah,
that shows registrations versus residents versus family served.
right. So I take that to I'll call it the team or the more competitive gymnastics. How do you then tell them
Because we haven't even
that you
offered-
do not subsidize that, but you did for the women's softball?
So I would tell them that we didn't even subsidize recreational gymnastics, so we can't put advanced ahead of.
No, I'm saying if you did do recreational gymnastics for the 23,000.
I see where he's going.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the answer that I would go with is that we're creating, given the cities of Milton, we can only support certain sports based on the availability of the facilities that we have.
Agreed.
On the boys' side, we support baseball both at a rec and a advanced level, right? We are offering that same opportunity on the girls' side through softball. because we don't have the facilities, right? And so it's equal. We have decided because we don't have facilities or anything.
So we're already doing it on
Right,
baseball.
yeah, we're already doing it.
If we got to the point where we got the money and a facility to
Yeah.
cover gymnastics, then we could then
So
we
it's a-
would
it's a-
have the
it's a-
facility.
It's a pecking order.
Yeah, we're just,
Does baseball charge more for out-of-city travel?
sure, they're required by their
Yeah,
contract to.
If you're out of city,
You're out of city.
you're out of city. You got to pay 50% more. So whatever the registration fee, if the registration fee for, I'm pulling numbers out of the air. If the registration fee for, rec baseball is $100, then out of city you pay $150. If
Right.
travel ball is $200, then 50% of that would be $100, but we cap it at $90, so it'd be $90.
Okay, I get what you're saying. From the provider is responsible for that with you.
Yes.
Whether they see that at the resident level, that's an interesting conversation, because
Well,
the reason
I
I
mean-
say that is I don't necessarily see the breakout in travel based on resident, non-resident when it comes to lacrosse, for example. You can see the fees right there on the website. It's the same price whether you're in.
Well,
Now, what you guys get on the other end is different.
Well, we are constantly trying to convince our program providers to put as part of their registration process a GIS checking, address checking component.
Right.
So that, Thomas lives in Cherokee and he brings his daughter to play lacrosse. He signs up on the website, thinks it's $200, but, the GIS picks up that he is out of city and his bill can be 200 plus the 90 cap.
Okay.
So, our program providers aren't doing that now, but we're charging them. So as we're hitting them in the pocket with it, we had a program provider this past year who didn't charge the out-of-city fee to his residents. And, with the MOU, having gone away, he found himself with a $9,000 bill. And he came to me and was like, what do we do about this? I said, it's not what we do, it's what you do. You've got to collect it. You've got to charge it and collect it up front.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it. I get it.
It's in writing that they are supposed to do it.
Get it.
Right.
Is AYBA gymnastics?
AYBA is Alfred
That's
E.
baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah,
Where's gymnastics on the large
The big sheet.
Bottom.
sheet?
I'd just like to say one,
Bottom under instructional, about 5 lines up.
one thing about travel teams.
Which one's recreational? I'm sorry. What is recreational?
Year round.
Year round.
No, recreational is not year-round.
Team monthly?
It's classes.
Oh, classes which are up top.
Okay, so where are classes?
Year-round is certainly competitive.
Where's that at?
Year round is competitive
At the
too.
very bottom, the last column under instructional,
I believe so.
you see gymnastics year-round
Yep.
and gymnastics team monthly. And the team monthly, that is the advanced level.
That's
And then the
advanced.
year-round is classes that they offer throughout the entire year.
Okay, right. Okay.
Well, I'm looking at
It's
a
50
different sheet that says classes. So
Oh, you're
It's
back on
50,
that
so
sheet.
what's the annual number? Is it 55,000 on the big sheet or 24,000 on the small sheet?
Well, that's the projected full year versus the last 9 months of the MOU that you're seeing in the short.
Well, this is going to
sheet.
be a quick decision here to make. If it's 55,000, we don't have the budget to do it. If it's 24,000,
This is just what the previous MOU ended with, and it was only a partial year.
this is projected.
This projected a full year. Thank you.
Well, that was we were saying we're burning through the money real quick.
Yeah.
If we just do gymnastics alone.
Correct.
Because
I
We
just
could have
like
solved
to,
that 10 minutes ago.
Sorry.
if you look at the column, follow across where it says gymnastics year-round, these are the classes. In the blue column, it's 692. That was, I put it in blue so that you could compare a full year of 2018 against what we believe is a projected
What
full year of
2019 would have been.
FY19.
Right.
If you look next to it, 692 is 388.
Right.
We grew to 388 in only 5 months of the year. So in this case, what we did is I kind of took 388, divided by 5, multiplied by 12, and came up with 931. Because we thought that was reasonable, because it's year-round.
Yep.
So you see the growth in that gymnastics If we had stayed with the program, my projection was that it would have cost gymnastics alone would have cost us $55,860.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it goes, I think we're, to kind of sum up this discussion, I think we're back to the point of, we got a pretty good idea of where we're at. I like Jason's idea of a hardship. I think gymnastics is the next item if the city decided to fund it, or if somehow we came in under budget and there was additional funds, the city wanted to open it. The decision and recommendation we make today doesn't necessarily mean it's binding on us for the full calendar year 2020. This issue can be revisited by us or council at any time. So we're trying to provide a big, strong, strategic brush for them, direction for them.
I really like what Jason said. I like the way that was
May I
worded.
throw out an idea? I think Jason has not one but two very good ideas. All right? The goal that you guys have previously said is you want to support recreation level.
We can hardship
The travel,
the travel those folks too.
the travel, if you declare that a hardship and say, we're not guaranteeing we're going to do this every year, because we are specifically not setting precedent with declaring this year travel softball as a hardship, but call it a hardship so you can justify it. You put it in that hardship bucket as compared to the automatic bucket. Do you see what I'm talking about, Jason?
Yep, absolutely. I think you can,
I just never thought that travel ball, this is my opinion, kind of left that Parks and Rec.
yeah.
I mean, that's
And
just
and that's
my
why I
opinion.
think we can, I
That's-
think it covers us to the precedence of what we want to set, right? That we don't cover that, and that if folks come to us, again, it looks like there were 10
But
people
the
that did it.
hardship on travel, aside, different from softball and baseball, would be a Milton resident playing at AYBA and travel and saying, I'm a hardship.
Yeah, I
And they chose to play in the wrong program.
You can come back to Milton.
That's right.
Well, that's my point. So I wouldn't call that one a
Yeah.
hardship. Because they're not even in the rec program in the city, let alone in the advanced program in the city. So I wouldn't call a Wills Park or an AYBA a travel hardship. I wouldn't call that an eligible hardship in my mind. Because
Correct.
you didn't play in the league in your own city, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to reward out-of-city travel.
Yeah, I guess
It's when you have a single provider,
The one
kind of.
person that would, or not the one person, the kid that lives in Milton but is districted to Alpharetta, and that's where he goes
Yep.
and plays travel through Alpharetta, that would, I think, qualify into that hardship
Yep.
that we would pay,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Because those are the kids that, even though he lives in our city, that's where he'll go to school.
Right.
Those are the kids that he should be with.
That's
or,
where the
you know,
4 square fence is in the
Yeah.
way of their.
And so that, those are the ones
Yep.
that I think we
All right.
want to look to spend that $20,000 on,
I agree.
right? To make them whole, or give them the best experience, right?
So if we've had a good if there are any other points to raise in the discussion, because if there's not, I'll entertain a motion. Somebody wants to put this in a idea of what we're recommending to the city council for programs that are eligible for reimbursement would be.
Just so I'm clear on that, I'm sorry to beat this one, but we're going to create a pathway for someone to submit for a hardship
For reimbursement
for reimbursement for an out-of-city fee.
fee. Because the MOU doesn't exist. And we've, in prior discussions, and again today, discussed that there are some sports.
But we're covering that for softball, which we've agreed. And the other is what?
Seniors.
Seniors.
Seniors not at the senior center.
And the remaining 20,000, call it 20,000.
There could be some football money, because
There could be some football
football
money,
money is
right. That's the
undetermined
unknown,
yet.
right.
Football's undetermined.
The unknown,
Oh, by the way, guys, for football, there were 3.
Three flag teams.
3 Milton residents on an Alpharetta team.
Oh, good.
So-
Under $500.
It's under $500. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Tom.
so back to the 20,000, we're going to allocate that for hardship. Who would that apply to?
So those are the folks that, if I live in the city of Milton, but I'm districted to Alpharetta High School,
Yeah.
right? I may find it better to go play in the Alpharetta Parks and Rec program, because those are the kids that I go to school with, right? Those are the kids that I'm going to go to high school with, whether it be the select baseball, whether it be whatever the case may be, right? That those are the folks that it makes sense for us to.
Roswell as well, right?
Right.
There's a Roswell area as well.
Yep. There's the right that. Hey, that's the best environment for that kid to be in. We shouldn't be forcing him to go.
Is
play
there
with
any
kids.
program in particular, or is it any
I think
program?
across all of these programs.
Any program,
Right.
any
That-
competing program.
Any program that
These
we're
program-
currently offering that this, so it wouldn't be gymnastics, I'm not picking on gymnastics, but a program that's not covered wouldn't become covered because you crossed out of the city. So you're in a currently contracted provider program that you have to choose because of where you live, another provider.
And do we know what number of participants?
No, and that's why we're.
And
kind
then
of
this is
keeping
where my struggle is, just to get to the point where I'm coming from. Is I go down the list and I look at Wills Park Summer Day Camp, right? It's a pretty significant number. Milton fiscal year 20, we're projected to be 313 through the end of this year. That's a lot of
families
served. Does the number exceed that of those that would file for a hardship? And if the answer is no, where does our interest lie? This is just what I'm trying to come to grips with. Is it 313 families that we should allocate this 20, because it's $19,000. Hey, here you go, 313 families of Milton, or 20 families that all of a sudden you guys have a benefit because of redistricting.
Yeah, but there could
We're not
be
going to
others.
benefit the other 290.
Yeah.
That's why I'm.
Part of it is that we don't, being year one, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Agreed.
So there could be kids that we turn away from Hopewell baseball because we just don't have.
But
the
what we do know, I
facilities.
agree with you, but what we do know is you would benefit 313 families.
Yeah, but what?
That is,
I'm sorry, I apologize, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kramer, you're talking about Wills Park Summer Day Camp?
It's 90.
I'm using that as an example,
Right.
yes.
There's, if you look at the chart here, the small one here,
Looking at the big one.
That's
okay,
313.
and that's registrations. All right? If you boil it down to here and look at this, we took it down to show you that these summer day camps, this is why we
90
slice and dice this.
families.
There's 55 families served who have a total of 80 kids who did a total of 313 registrations.
Okay.
Okay? I just
I'm
wanted-
trying, but I guess I'm getting back to the concept of, do you hold the money for an unknown number of Milton residents versus do you leverage that money, right, to programming to impact a greater number of residents? That is the point.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter which program it
Yeah.
is. I guess is
So I
the-
guess my argument would be is that if we do go and spend that out, there is the chance that whether it be through baseball, which we're hitting capacity, whether it be through basketball, where we have limited, that somebody comes to halftime sports and we say, we can't take you anymore because we don't have facilities. And now as a Milton resident, I want to play in the Milton program, but I'm being forced to go somewhere else and pay an out-of-city fee. That's the hardships that I'm trying to talk about. So we would pick up, say there's 440 kids that come and say, I want to play in Milton, but you don't have enough space for me. And we're saying, you can go to Alpharetta now. We'll pay that extra $100 for you or whatever the out-of-city fee is.
To my knowledge, we don't have any programs turning people away
Yeah.
because
What do
of
you
field
mean?
space.
Milton turning away?
Yeah.
But we
So
don't know
to-
that doesn't happen as
To
we
give
go,
you a
right?
rough, to give you a quick idea of this number that's actually happening, you do have, and I'm just saying this based on conversation. I don't know the actual number. We'd have to ask Kim Coleman, but there is a basketball team that's in his girls program, and this is just one I know of, that was playing in the Alpharetta program. The reason that they're mostly Milton residents. They've switched over. One of the reasons someone had mentioned was the fees had gone up, which is obviously we know that, but they would probably prefer to play in the Alpharetta one. The reason is the competition for the girls is better over at Alpharetta right now. But they did stay. That's 10 extra families. So that fits that scenario that we're talking about, that they've come back. Maybe they would have wanted to play in the Alpharetta.
But it's not
Well,
a
and
choice,
again,
but we're not subsidizing, we're not offering hardship or choices, where programs are available in both places.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We're
That's
not
right.
saying, if you choose to play in Alpharetta and we offer it, we're gonna subsidize you. That's not the option. I think what Jason's saying is a safe spot to kick this thing off is in sports where we know we have duplicative efforts, that we're not gonna do anything, so that's baseball. We know a sport like softball, we only have one provider, so we wanna make sure that we take care of girls playing a stick and ball sport. It's because we've got baseball covered, we've got softball covered, we've got seniors covered. Football's a little bit unknown, but it's a similar situation with a single provider and families from both sides trampling around it. We'll see how that plays out. The next issue, if we put a line on it for hardships and leave it and come in under, then we're comfortable, because then the next level of discussions is pitting day camp against gymnastics.
Right.
And we don't have enough money to worry about that discussion right now. That's my mind.
So we're sort of putting.
So we're leaving an
Why is your gymnastics kid more important than my
That's
karate
what,
kid?
I think that's what we're doing in this discussion.
Right.
If the council comes back and wants more direction, then we can re-engage on starting to prioritize, but we need more money. So we're
Right.
going to deliver without overcommitting them, because the worst thing I think we would want to do is commit to 2 more programs, and the number's $90,000, and then we put the city in the spot of they can't do it.
Agreed, but let me ask this question. What is more important to this board, hardship or additional programming?
We always want more programming, I think, but we're limited by facilities right now.
Fine.
So the goal is not to take money saved from the MOU and be rolling it to
So-
the idea of.
But I don't think our decision tonight reflects that. If that's what we decide, because we're saying we're going to take $20,000, we're going to hold that, right? We're going to be fiscally responsible and hold that and say, hey, a little unknown with football, but for those, due to districting, we're going to hold that and provide reimbursement for out-of-city fees for redistricting, hardship, right? Versus opening up additional programming. Which program, we can debate that all night long, right? What's next in priority? We can go down the list, but you have $20,000.
Right.
You can open it up to the next based on the surveys from the community. You can base it on number of residents registered. You can base it on a number of factors. Where is $20 best well spent? Hardship, additional programming. That's a fundamental decision we've got to make on this board.
I think the way you look at it, I would say the hardship, because in essence, you're funding all the other participants in that sport, right? Until
We're making those sports
So the
whole.
reason why we're saying we're offering the hardship is because either they can't play in our program for, say they get to capacity and we have to say you got to go somewhere else and play. So we'll cover that because we covered everybody else. Or the same goes for the Milton resident who has to go to Alpharetta for some reason and they get shipped over there. We would offer it to you. You wanted to be in this program. You're part of the same group, but you have to go play there and you're getting charged a fee. So we're paying for those other kids that are in that sport.
Is
So,
it any program
But
that anyone could file for a hardship?
well, I'm saying the examples I'm using are the ones that we're already supporting from, whether it's baseball or softball. We're saying
Maybe we need to be more clear about hardship, but hardship, in my mind, following up what Jason said, was it would be related to where the Milton City line got in the way of the sports that we've agreed to cover.
That we've
Right.
agreed to
So,
cover.
so that becomes softball, because that's, and football, which is the only one where we have a provider that's outside of the
So,
city
I
of
mean,
Milton.
but it could cross over, again, not knowing all the, could be tennis, right? Maybe the tennis that we offer for youth tennis or swimming or for whatever reason, you could see that in swimming, I guess, right? Because the Alpharetta kids,
Somebody's going to come in here and say, I want to take the dive team at Alpharetta, and you don't have a diving board.
right?
Somebody's going to say that, right?
Yeah,
So
but
that's
it-
one.
you
But
know-
by my point of that is, though, I suspect that although we're focused on the $20,000 plus or minus number that is hardship, we'll be lucky if we spend $5,000.
So
It gives us enough buffer to be comfortable and fiscally responsible for the city, and I personally am comfortable with that, rather than adding more ornaments on the tree and creating an obligation the city doesn't have a fund for.
So I think the way that I look at it is across fairness, right? This is what we as a city offer, right? We don't offer a counter to baseball, so we offer softball, and we agree to fund all of that, right? That $20,000 is within those programs that we offer, from tennis, swim, football, girls and boys, lacrosse, girls and boys, baseball, right? And all of the sports that we offer as a city, there could be situations that people need to play with Alpharetta or somewhere else that, because they can't, it doesn't make sense for them to play with us. So in fairness, even though they're City of Milton residents, we should cover that.
What we ought to know, just as what our liability could be, and I don't know, and I hate to put this on city staff, but is it possible to know that if, based on districting, what would your maximum liability be for residents that would file for reimbursement that were redistricted? There's a total liability to that. If you have 300 residents that are impacted, right, that's the number you need. And if every single one of them filed, your exposure is X amount of dollars.
Yep.
I mean, you almost have the budget for that. If we're going to make a process to say, hey, we're going to allow hardships, you need to create a line item budget to maximize your liability. Your liability is how many individuals? What if 500 come in? Well, guess what? Your 20,000 is long gone. In fact, you're going to need more than 20,000.
Right, but
That's
I
why I
mean,
can't offer another program.
No,
That's why I got to draw the line and
that's-
shorten the bucket.
we're offering something up. We don't know what our liability is.
You're right, we don't. So we're making our best.
Yeah, I mean,
We should try to get to that number. That's
yeah, I agree, but
So-
in
No school
theory, we
districting,
don't
because it
know
only
what our
depends on when you
liability
show
is.
up.
no.
The what?
Yeah.
It only depends on the day you register. I can't project how many kids until the day you entered the program to know where your district is.
Right, I mean, we don't, and in theory, we
can't
don't know
project
what our
what's gonna
liability is
happen.
on any of these, right? And
You can use current data.
Well, are we saying,
The best, the data that you're asking for, we can't possibly come up with. All we can do is look at the historical trend. That's the best.
Yeah,
data
yeah,
we've
yeah.
got,
Agreed.
Okay?
Agreed.
You know, to try and put an absolute measure on what is our potential maximum liability.
That's right.
That's not possible.
I'd love to go there, but then we're taking every program, run it through GIS and trying to high school lines and trying to project.
Yeah.
It's a little more granular than.
and in theory, we don't have a, you know.
Well, so
if-
then
if-
if
500
we agree
families
on this, at least what we establish is a baseline for following years to say, hey, reimbursement was only, hardship reimbursement equated to $4,000.
And
Now
that's
we
why
have
I
a
said-
baseline.
Yeah. That's
Right.
why I said in
Yeah.
the first year, I think it's prudent because
Walk
what if,
before you run.
what if just we find out that the fifth grade class really is all into softball, and that $20,000, that 24,000 becomes 33,000.
Listen, I would just hate for us to have to pay out $50,000 when we only had a $20,000 line item to cover this.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that number spikes to 30. Maybe Alpharetta does a good job promoting softball and is doing a recruit. You don't know what those numbers are going to actually end up at, and that's
So-
why I think if we have that buffer, it can cover. some
Well,
of
there is
those
a good, there's
hardships. And then if this 24,000 actually becomes 28,000 or 30,000, because you know
Yeah.
the gym teacher now is coaching softball and is getting all the fifth and
Yeah.
sixth graders, right?
Yep.
But Scott, then back to your point, then we've got to be very deliberate on what a hardship is and who is
Well, so one of the
Well-
challenges to this, one of the challenges of this discussion, it'll be for staff, because it's not for us, is to figure out how the reimbursement mechanism will work. Like, do you come to the text window? What do you do? And that's on you guys to figure out. We can talk about that at another meeting.
We can figure that out.
But then you guys are the enforcers of which bucket are you in and what are you applying for? And if we need to come back to us to have this discussion around that, we're glad to do it.
I would suspect that it would probably be a situation of, based upon the guidance we received from you, I can make an initial decision, and then there's be, if a person's unhappy with the decision,
Come and appeal
then
it.
there'd be appeal to you guys.
Tom will write up a policy and we'll have a procedure for applying for hardships.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
The one thing that, Phil, I absolutely see your point. I absolutely see it. But what we don't know is what the growth and the expansion could be. But if you look at the big, large page on the second page, we started out at 325,000. And if you look all the way to the bottom, all the way to the right, I projected that we would have been at almost $510,000. And this is all due to growth and expansion programs that we had no control over. So, the walk before you run mentality of this I think could be very palatable. And then the other point I would make is that if we don't spend $50,000, all $50,000, that money can get reallocated to perhaps buying other equipment and stuff to enhance the facilities and programs that we have here in the
Stay
city.
in parks.
So it's not like it necessarily has to go right just back into the coffers. It can still be used to benefit Milton residents. And then we say, okay, as we do in the 2021 budget, we say, you know what? Wow, we allocated 50,000, but we only got 18,000 people coming in, $18,000 worth of people coming in. So then we make the decision either expand or reduce that $50,000 bucket.
Yeah.
But
Jim,
So to Jim's point, and the other thing that could have happened, Phil, one of the things that it's December, budget decisions were made. Next year, we'll be ahead of the discussion, so we could be reviewing where people enrolled, how the hardships rolled, how the monies we allocated these programs rolled, and we could be telling the city what the budget item needs to be. And we're in front of it, rather than managing up to it. We could be helping set the budget next year rather than doing it
Jim, have you seen
the way we're doing this year.
I got you.
do you know if Alpharetta's softball has seen an increase for their program as well?
I am no longer on the board, and I don't have access to that information.
I'm just curious, because I think Jason's right. That program, considering since we don't have our own softball program, all the growth in neighborhoods that are going up,
Yeah, it's only growing.
female sports, it should grow.
It should, but it has been remarkably stagnant in the last several years.
Okay.
You can thank lacrosse for that.
I don't think the total.
Pretty much.
I don't think the total registration in the spring has varied more than about 20, 25 kids.
Okay.
It's
over
not
years.
doing
And
what
I base
baseball's
that
doing.
on the number of teams I see playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Heck, it goes back to when I played. It hasn't moved. 5 years.
Yeah, and quite candidly, I can't figure it out because, we've got 800 boys playing baseball here in Milton, but we only have about 350 girls playing, softball.
it's fascinating.
Now, the girls' lacrosse numbers are bigger than the boys' lacrosse numbers, but they're not 500.
Yeah.
They're not 450
Yeah, but
people
there's
different.
other,
Pardon?
like year-round dance, right, or in gymnastics,
no-
things
no
like
question.
that.
Yep.
No
That-
question.
Get in the way.
there's-
You
There's less year-round
Softball's
sports
more
for boys,
seasonality.
right? Boys' sports tend to be more seasonality, so you play football and baseball or lacrosse, football, baseball. So you're hitting three, where some of those dance, gymnastics, and even soccer, they suck you in for the whole year.
I mean, and I'm sure in the dance program, there's a Billy Elliot, but without question, most of them are, girls.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I think we've come to a logical conclusion to this thoughtful and spirited discussion. I would entertain a motion for us to provide direction to council of what we would like to include in a reimbursement line item.
I'll make a motion, if I can articulate this,
That was my
to approve reimbursement
For calendar year 2020.
for 2020 programming for softball, youth softball, and senior programming,
not at the adult activities center.
Right.
correct, and reallocating the remaining of the funds for hardship cases, of which will be defined of select sports programming within the city.
Might be easier if you make it two motions, one of them being Mr. Cranmer's motion, and then a second one to define the hardship. Otherwise, it can get very complicated.
And did you have football?
I thought you guys were defining the hardship.
Well, I
You guys come to us you guys come to us next month and tell us what you think hardship looks like, and we'll
That's fair.
anticipate it, and we'll
That's
just,
fair.
we'll add, we'll approve what it should be.
That's fair.
And football turned out to be 3 kids.
Okay.
Is that what you told me?
That can be part of the hardship process
Yeah,
that they figure
for now.
out, right?
Yeah, we'll leave that alone. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion by Phil. I think everybody's heard it. Joey?
Yep.
Tom?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Great discussion, gentlemen. Thanks. That'll be a big help. Next item under unfinished business is discussion of appointment of program partner liaisons.
I thought we had decided to push that out again and keep it as unfinished business until we have.
Until we get a full spot.
board and we
We can-
understand.
we can
the
table
elected
to-
officials appoint. So I
So-
thought we decided to push that to a January and keep it as unfinished business.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
We can. You want to make a motion to table and bring it back in January?
What are we,
The program liaisons?
yes, but, Mr. Chair, I don't believe we are finished with the agenda item. Because we're still trying to determine what programs, that we should be moving forward with.
We just said softball and
No,
that.
okay. That was, my understanding is that was for the reimbursement. But what the goal we're trying to come up with here is what programs, prioritizing these programs in terms of which ones do you think we should be trying to get done in the next 1 to 2 years?
Okay.
Regardless of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, regardless of what facilities we have,
Right.
or, what do you guys envision the City of Milton Parks and Rec Department, what should we be offering, whether we can or cannot right now? Should we offer tree climbing? And then yes.
I mean, we could do a deep dive into 30 or 40 things, but the fact that you probably really need only the answer to about four or five to get this thing
Exactly, because
rolling.
it's really just you said the next year, right, couple of years.
1 to
yeah.
3, 5.
We're talking, next 1 to 2 years.
So,
I can give you an example. We believe that the Milton Country Club, there currently now is an RFP on the street for the demolition and mold remediation and the redesign of the Milton Country Club building. So knowing the process of how long that takes, it's 30 days, and then the contract and all, we're talking probably 3 months before we have a work starting on it, and then we have to get the design, and then take the design out for construction. Realistically, I think we are going to go all through 2020 with the building still closed, but under some form of reconstruction. But I am hopeful that we can have the Milton Country Club as a useful facility for the citizens in 2021. So we're really only talking 2 years from now.
right.
So 2 years from now, what should we be doing in that building? Okay,
So-
we'll finally have the opportunity for some indoor programming. It's not due to the physical structure, unless we're changing the roof line, it's not going to be viable for gymnastics. But it could be for dance. It could be for other, if we still have the kitchen, we could do culinary arts.
So
art.
this is, part of me is this is tail wagging dog. I can make a list and say gymnastics is what we need to offer, but we don't see anything in the foreseeable future. 2 to 3
But we need
to
that,
5 years.
but we need that direction.
But we
So-
need that direction because that may drive the push to the elected officials that we need to get a community center
$1 million building?
and float a bond.
Should we offer?
And float a bond to go get, because I think there's a potential taste to try and pursue an active parks bond,
Correct.
all right? And a community center potentially being part of that. I mean, everything's out there right now, right? But what Steve Krokoff is looking for from you guys is, what should we be offering? What, if we want to be the Parks and Rec program where we want to be in 2 to 5 years, that will help drive the city's push of what programming, of what facilities do we have to get. Okay? You guys did a great job in October saying we need 4 more baseball fields, we need basketball, blah, 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 blah. What about other programming?
Could we, with respect to everybody's time, we've started in we're well into this, could we make that our January primary topic? Or make it a workshop and ask for some public input?
Do anything that you wish. I mean,
Within
you know,
reason.
But how
we-
about
we-
from a time frame, right? I
You
mean,
know,
is it-
yeah,
timing is this, does that?
Yeah, we were kind of hoping to have this in November, but, you know, if it takes more time, it takes more time. As far as the public input type thing, we've got that public input. We've got the survey that was done, the statistically valid survey. We have that data. We have the data of what people have been using in Alpharetta. You know,
So to that, without, I mean, this may be a simpler task because we already have put out what we as a group think, right? On both of these, right? As well as what our citizens are using in Alpharetta, right? So if you're asking me, the first thing on the list is gymnastics, right? We don't have facilities for that. We should be offering gymnastics. At some level, our folks are using it. It ranked here pretty high on that top.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Again, this is just what should we be offering, not what we have the ability to offer.
Correct.
get go.
Right?
That is correct.
Yes.
So
Got
based
it.
on that, certainly gymnastics, I think, would be very high on that.
And then basketball would fall right in after it, and then you have all the other indoor classes and year-round, so let's,
But we already offer.
Yeah.
Because we covered that at the last meeting, what
Yeah.
facilities we need, right? Meaning additional baseball fields, right? But I would say that softball should be right up there as well.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, that's
something that
what
we offer,
I looked at something like softball,
right? Because we don't.
gymnastics, just looking at the usage.
Mm-hmm.
What are our residents using? Art classes, something like that, which can be used at the Milton Country Club. You can use it as a multi-facility room for whether it's cooking classes, art classes, those types of things. Do something with. I think I noticed one of our high priorities, something with
So you-
nature trails or something with the passive space. They could have courses or something for the kids to use along those lines.
Can I ask a
Or something.
process question? This discussion that, exactly what you two are saying, is the discussion we need to have. I think we've been so hyper-focused on current programming and space and lack of capacity.
Yes.
We haven't thought a year out or 2 years out. This discussion, I don't think we can cram into a 10, 20, 30-minute conversation.
Well, the
I
thing
do.
is that we've
I think we
done,
can.
we've done the ranking. And so we did have this discussion.
I was just going to suggest if we could do some workshop and do some whiteboarding and start laying it out on the board and just power ranking 30, 20 programs over the next 1 to 3 year horizon, we can probably get to, I
think when
envision
you
that
look-
being an hour, 2 hour process, but if we think you guys can.
I don't know. I think when you look
cut
at it
that out
from
quicker.
what everybody's evaluated from a priority standpoint with what we all thought, and then you look at, okay, what are our residents using on the
Yeah,
sheet and saying,
yeah.
who's it serving? Well, you kind of say, which pairs up the most?
Yep.
And just say, you know, if they fall within the top of what we think is priority and what our residents are using, I mean, I think you start with what the residents are using first as priority and say, okay, that seems to be neat. Can we actually fulfill that
And you've got the
somehow in a
survey
year or
feedback,
two?
yeah.
Then we make that the priority, and especially if it's already high on our list. That's why I was looking at saying, okay, you have, you know, obviously gymnastics is a big thing.
So here's my short list, just listen, right? I'm at gymnastics, softball, and summer camp.
Yeah, I got those three.
Can be populated with all kinds of
Yep, I
things,
agree.
including CPR and first aid and anything in that bucket.
What is this youth?
So that gets you to three big, directions that begs building.
And to your point of the Milton, I mean, if I look at the things that are being used and that babysitter boot camp, Milton, the city, if the country club is redone, that's something that certainly could be housed there.
Yeah.
The CPR thing could
Yeah.
certainly be there.
But I-
Probably-
Because CPR is already offered.
Yeah,
We just
CPR.
don't promote it as a Parks and Rec thing.
Well,
Correct.
we just purchased soccer fields.
Lacrosse fields, we don't offer soccer.
No,
But
but
I mean,
I,
we just
but I
purchased
think-
soccer fields.
Yes.
What I mean is that we have a provider that's a private provider in the city. We don't have soccer. I don't know as much about soccer. I know you worked on it quite a bit at Alpharetta. Is that something that could happen, or is
What?
Anything
need in
could
this
happen.
soccer.
The fear was just muddy in the water and us starting a program and just pulling handfuls of kids from all these other programs.
Well, it
and
does
just
scare
having
me that they
another
failed
small-
over at Cox Road, so.
What's that?
United, right? They didn't work out.
Didn't work out.
Yeah.
And, we have, prior to Tom being here, we have attempted to run, soccer programming here. We were never able to get it over 40 kids.
Yeah.
Rush is such a well-known
Yes.
organization.
So how many,
The other organizations around the city too that aren't far.
Yeah.
You know.
Ambush,
how deep are you looking? I mean, because to your point, that's gymnastics, softball, summer camps.
Yeah.
Really, that knocks off the most residents.
It
and
takes half of the first 3 pages.
What was this youth instructional sports camps? Does that fall into the summer camps?
Summer
then?
camps.
Summer camp.
These were camps that, some of them were summer camps, some of them were just mom goes to do gymnastics and yoga classes.
Off,
at
half
Alfred
day,
and
full
then-
day.
And then the kid goes to a intro to soccer, intro to Sportex. It was for 2 to 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Intro to
You could roll up, I mean, if you were to try and put a number, summer camps, although it's one, it sounds like, one item. If we were to look through this list, there are 12 different programmings
That fall into
a summer campish kind of, need a building, need a place, need restrooms, need a spot, so I'm kind of with you, Sean.
Are we
that
off
this-
dance now since we provided?
Well,
Yeah.
so I was going to ask is, where are we providing dance?
Bethwell Community
Bethwell.
Center.
Okay, because I was going to say, I know we don't have a good vision, I mean, you like you said, for Milton Country Club of how the space is going to be laid out yet, but, I think when you look at anything that's a class base here, you can have a multifunction room for a majority of these things, and they just fall on a different day of the week, it's a 6-week course, whatever it is.
Yep.
You can hit a lot of the boxes, just depending on what size of
how
room
big,
and
right.
how,
Some
how
of them
many
are-
rooms we can get,
Right.
and how many different things you can offer. And then summer camps, different age groups that in the summer could be reserved for all those types of things, whether it's counselor in training or babysitter boot camps or any of those types of things. But I mean, I don't. So I think any class-oriented thing, we can kind of say, okay, yeah, it's it can be a priority at any point.
Yep.
Just given the space
So
availability
We'll
that
call
we will
one
have
camps
over
and one classes,
there. Yeah.
because classes implies maybe off summer.
Correct, yep.
Since this is a
A
programming
little guidance.
conversation.
A little
is-
guidance on that would be helpful though, because we need to know what to pursue.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Well, so I don't think
Like
you
art versus,
But is that trying to find
culinary,
vendors, or is that
right?
Okay.
Right, because that's something that I can't offer, myself.
Right.
So we would need to know who to go out and pursue to put. So even if you class them all as priority 2, like these are important but not dire needs right now.
Right.
And that could be all these classes that we're talking about.
The hard part of this.
We just need to be more specific than just
So
classes.
the hard part.
Art
for-
classes.
Right. So the hard part
Okay,
for me,
great.
Thomas, so in this 2019 MOU thing, this summary, right, art classes are 49 families, or 49 residents.
Yep.
45 families. So we're down to, what are we offering? A city of 40,000 people, we're worried about offering programming to 45 families.
Well, and part of
And
it,
so
Then maybe the answer is no. Well, then maybe the answer is no.
splitting hairs, and then maybe the bigger question is, do we as a city really want to have the facilities to be able to offer that, or are we willing to go back to subsidizing the
Well,
small
the-
participation
the
programming?
question becomes this,
Because
is-
we're going to be building monuments and buildings that we need to fill them up with 7 of these 50 people classes.
but the question becomes, I think, maybe we're looking at this the wrong way, because all of these, and you know better, because this is what you live and breathe, but my guess is that 90% of the things that are offered here were, hey, we have a building, now let's put in CPR.
That's
right?
correct.
Let's put this in, right?
You're right.
If we're in an agreement that we say, hey, gymnastics, it would be great for that. We need an indoor facility for basketball. We need some facilities. And then we can say, let's go figure out how to fill it. right?
The problem
Like
is
whether
you
it
really
be-
don't
You
need to
get-
know.
it's cyclical, really.
No, but you
Yeah.
don't need to know whether it's
Because we need a building,
Since
because,
it starts with the building, you don't need, Jim may disagree, but you don't need to know CPR versus art, because we're 3 or 4 years away from having a building, and we
Yeah.
can discuss which vendor we're gonna chase 3.5 years from now before the grand opening, rather than 3 years in advance of waiting for land to be bought and a building to rise out of the ground.
Exactly, right.
Because you're gonna
Like
have
it's-
somebody sitting around going,
if
so
we
Tom,
have the
when's that,
building,
when's that
we
building
can
open, so
figure
I
out
can run
what
my
to
art
put into
class?
it.
That doesn't help
Without the
anybody.
building, like, do we need to say,
But we need to know why we need the building.
Okay.
What about, I'm just looking here, open gym membership? Can you put a gym facility in there? Like, not a massive one, but.
So let's add, so why we need a building? Let's add basketball back to that list then. So it's basketball, gymnastics, we'd rather own
I think that
space
gets
and.
back into the, we identify the programs, then you look at the infrastructure needed to support the programs.
Right.
Do you outsource it? Do you bring it in? Do you do a capital acquisition? Do you build?
Yep, build
Right?
a
The act,
rent, right. No,
And then
you're
you
right.
fill it.
Yep.
And then, let's not worry about what we need to build. What programming do we want to offer?
Right.
Then the decision is
But
made.
we already offer
How do we-
basketball, we've already made that decision, but we could make it better by having control over it, which requires a
So
building.
you take the decision we already made, the
Yep.
request that we made for additional space required, plus we need this additional programming.
Yep.
Then city staff can go back and say, okay,
Let's
here's the
design a building.
infrastructure we need, right, required to support the programming and the
'Cause
space required.
Because an art program, a true art program, requires a different room than babysitter boot camp. If you want to do a nice, true art program. So giving us guidance on what the programs are that we want are going to be able to.
You guys will decide what buildings we need then.
Right.
so I wonder if
That's a different, that's a different question.
that to me, I think, comes to the design of the building, right? I think the idea of building the case to build a building, right? Or creating a case, right? It shouldn't be about, we want to do CPR versus babysitter boot camp or art versus babysitter boot camp, right? It should be, look,
Big picture.
here's 100 things that Alpharetta offers, here's this, right? We want to be part of that group and bring our folks in to this and create a sense of community within Milton. And so the more things that we can offer and brand as Milton, that's why we need a building to do this. So they're not having to go here. We got 5 people that go to, Forsyth for babysitter and 5 people that go to Alpharetta for this and 5 that go.
Yeah.
And collectively, we lose all of those people where if we had a building, we could do something for them all.
I will say
But-
this too, and
'cause-
Jason's well aware of this in the lacrosse world. We've got girls all over the place. I don't know about the boys as well, but going to Cumming, where Amilax is, and going to Alpharetta, where A+ something is. A+, I think is what it's called. We're running multiple sessions of kids who have no ability. We have to go other places, rent the facilities to get the training out that they want to do. If we had that here, that would be, we had a facility, which is, what I'm getting at is we have the need for facility even with the sports we currently have.
I'm sure that baseball
I think
would
that's-
love to have
I
it.
think
But
that's-
that'll be addressed as the
Full
growth
football
continues
field
because
and
we already have those programs.
We already have those
But
programs.
I think what Jim was trying to direct us, and you guys are raising a valid point. Jim's trying to say, what new programming do we need to prioritize that would go in, and then what would it go inside of, like a new building? And yet, we're all can sit here today because we know our sports and say, we could take a piece of all of our sports and put it inside a building that
Absolutely.
we already need today that isn't justified by new programming. We could serve more of the people that are already in, the 300 people playing softball today by serving them by having some indoor facility rather than worrying about
Well, and to get-
the 49 families in art class.
And
That's not what the city
and
wants
to
to
get you an
hear.
idea of filling those things up, they filled up in.
No, I know they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that, the justification for a building, to me, would basketball and gymnastics alone would justify that.
Yep.
And then we stop and say, okay, what other things do we want to do to support it? We want to have an art room off on the side. We want to have something else.
A classroom.
A classroom
Yep.
for,
Yep.
that we can do this. We want to have a music room, that's soundproof over in this. Then we can start to get to that.
Yeah,
The
we're
justification, because having, 40 people that do art doesn't justify a building. right? Having
And-
200 and some that do gymnastics and, you know,
Correct.
how we're doing the current basketball justifies us having
Well,
some type
and
of
basketball in general, just so you, and you know this because you've been in the facilities, Northwestern's is a full-size basketball court. Birmingham Falls is not. The Crabapple.
Northwestern, Cockburn, and then the church.
The Crabapple location is a tiny little, I mean, these, we're penciling in little lines to make sure this works out, but the reality is that you play differently when you're at Northwestern as you do at Crabapple Baptist Church or whatever it is.
The Baptist church has a full court.
It has a
it's
full
a
court.
full
So
court.
it's
Crabapple
all-
Crossing
all the
Elementary.
elementary.
Which one are we at?
the elementaries or
Which, yeah.
Well, let's do this. I think I've heard 7 ideas. Unless Jim tells me we got to do different, I would start with these 7 and throw those on the board, and then the staff can come back to us and say, tweak it a little more. The Steve and council wants a little more insight, but we've already filled up 7 items without going too far, without talking for another hour on this topic. That is enough to get us into how big a building could be to serve gymnastics, how big a building could serve.
That has nothing to do with this discussion on what building we put it in. The idea is, as a Parks and Rec department, what should be offered regardless of what
Yeah, well,
we
I
have
didn't
or
bring
what we
that
could
cheat
have or
sheet
don't
to
have.
this meeting about.
what are your 7s? Because I think.
Well, we can,
We're probably
then
pretty
if we're not
close.
prepared, then we're not prepared.
Yeah, well, that's part of I understood, I remember it, but I mean, we're back into this list, the community want list, rather than and quite frankly, I think we've covered much of it, because it starts, high priorities, walking, jogging, well, that's out there, adult fitness and wellness, I mean, we can debate that. Nature programs, visiting parks, youth sports is kind of a blanket thing we keep talking in and out of, outdoor recreation and adventure programs, including fishing. Socialization with dogs. I guess we need to build a dog park because we don't have that. Swimming, we got
that
tennis, we
park,
got
right?
camps, senior adult recreation, and picnicking. I mean, we've covered more than half of this high priority list already. So that's without saying art class or versus CPR. So I'm not as much. I understand what you guys want, or what Steve has asked us for. I'm not as much worried about being specific to what I can put in a classroom is the fact that I need a classroom. Because whether it's pottery or first aid or babysitter training, that classroom's going to get filled with something. But I got to know we have one. You guys want me to tell you what night to offer babysitting training versus pottery, and pottery's 3 nights a week and babysitters one night. I mean, we can build it from the ground up, but it's so far abstract to me that I'm not confident that that's productive use of time. So I'd rather paint the big broad stroke of the things that we have, where we know the needs are, and start to draw some things into the boxes and then say, what would this building look like? How many square feet could it possibly be? And then we can come into prioritizing what kind of things we would want. But I worry, and I'm frustrated a little, that we don't know how big a building we want, nor how we would finance or get it, that we could talk this till midnight tonight and not solve this problem.
I agree, and actually, I think where this will end up is we'll be repurposing some retail facility out there that is closed up because of the Amazon effect. So,
Fries.
yeah, I was like, God, are you really closing? No, we're not. We're just restocking. No,
Yeah,
you're closing.
right.
So that's
Yeah.
my opinion.
We could come back to this discussion with these 7 things that we've outlined. We could identify in the variable space, because we know that the sports affiliated space for gymnastics or basketball or volleyball for that matter, or what a baseball or lacrosse practice area might look like. We got pretty good ideas of what that might look like. But the rest of it is how many classrooms do we want to have is really gets into how big is the building going to be. Are we going to offer CPR training 5 nights a week? You know, and is the fire department going to do it? I mean, that's a different discussion. So I'm not really struggled by prioritizing the individual programming yet. Jim, we're following up on your discussion. We've identified 7 big topics for what could take place in an indoor building, but we're not giving you direction on this class versus this class yet.
Okay. That's a help.
Because one of the things I was saying while you were out was we really don't know how practical or how realistic a building, what size it might be, and Tom's been really good to be a good reminder to drag us back to setting prioritizing on programming. He's listening to you well. But I've been trying to advise the board that I'm not sure we could sit here till midnight and talk about CPR versus babysitting classes, and,
No,
and we won't.
Excuse me, I don't think that's the intent. We're trying to come up with what programming do we want to offer that will drive decisions for new facilities or.
So
Yeah.
we came up with a list of 7 while you were out. Ready?
Okay,
Gymnastics,
agreed.
softball, summer camps,
Okay, hold on. Gymnastics, softball,
summer camps, year-round classes, and then basketball, which probably goes ahead of softball, quite frankly. It's probably gymnastics and basketball, the top 2.
I'm
And
at
then
year-round classes, then you, after year-round classes.
Basketball.
Basketball. I'm sorry, I can't write very fast.
it's all right.
Yes, sir?
And lacrosse and baseball
Lacrosse? We already offer lacrosse.
for indoor space. If we're talking about a building,
Okay.
programmings are renting outside space right now.
Indoor lacrosse. Okay.
What about gym? They do have 94.
And baseball.
And
Open gym.
indoor baseball.
Batting cages.
Yeah, practice space.
Okay.
Like renting it.
I got it.
So that gets us 7 big bucketed ideas that you guys could go and kind of say, what would it look like if you put some square foot around it? And then we can come back and revisit prioritization for how would you fill up classes? Well, classes we would offer these. Tom should go chase classes in this order. This one first, this one second, this one third.
Okay.
But right now, to worry about art class for 49 families is,
Right.
in my mind, putting it backwards when we've got all these other needs that would need a building.
Got it.
That's kind of the discussion that we had.
This is very helpful. This is what we need. This is what we need. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion on that
You, a good idea.
as it relates to prioritization of programming for the city of Milton in the years beyond 2020?
Who wrote it down besides Jim?
I'll help you with it.
4 in my head.
You start the motion, I'll fill in the blanks.
All right, I'll make a motion that programming that we would like to offer beyond the year 2020 would include the following 7 items.
Gymnastics, softball, summer camps, year-round classes, basketball, indoor lacrosse, and indoor baseball.
Very good.
Yeah. With the idea that lacrosse, softball, baseball being more practice facility, right?
Right.
Small stuff.
Indoor lacrosse, practice,
Batting, you were
Indoor.
talking about batting cages. and
covered
that kind
Yeah.
batting cages.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask, all right, I'll wait till the motion's over.
Okay, motion by Jason on 7 items for future programming 2020 and beyond.
I second.
A second by Sean Michael. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay,
So
if I may
moved.
just ask a quick question. I have been over to Wills Park